Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Ute Dash. My name is Cole Bagley and I'm your host for today's show. I'm joined by the lovely Sammy Mora, editor for the Daily Utah Chronicle Sports Desk. How are you, Sammy?
I'm great. Camp Kyle, first full day of pads. We're back with Ute Dash. Camp Kyle's back. Football's back. Good.
It is a great day. Sammy, we've been off for a few weeks, but I'm especially excited for today's show as we have a very special guest, a young man who very well may be the future prospect for the U. However, it might not be until about 2038. But Sammy, let me introduce you to the reason we were out last week. My son, Bowen Bagley.
Yay! Yay! Let's go.
This is a Utah man if I ever saw one. He's already looking strong. He weighs 8 pounds, 5 ounces, super solid. Someone the coaching staff is going to want to keep their eye on. But yes, I mean, what do you think? You see his shoes, his little shoes, and his onesie?
He's great. Perfect. Future offensive player for the University of Utah football team.
Hopefully one day. But for now, just with that on the show. And shout out to his mom for letting him be on today. His first guest appearance. Hopefully many more to come.
That's actually a really, really good transition into our first topic today. We're going to give a little recruiting update, talk about the future of Utah football. So a lot has happened with Utah's recruiting since we last checked in with them. It was in August, I think, or September when we last checked in with them. But there's been some movement. So we've had 4 or 5 commits in the last little bit. One of the biggest ones we got was Mason Tafuga, the 4-star linebacker from St. Louis High School in Hawaii. He's the number 2 player in the state. We beat out Arizona State, Colorado, Nebraska, Oregon, USC, South Carolina. Huge get for the program. Solid pick, and also going to help that depth at linebacker. I'm really high on him. I think he's going to be great.
What would you say his greatest strengths are, Sammy? What's got you so excited about this kid?
His size. I like his size a lot. He's 6'1", 210. He can bulk up a little bit more, but his size is something that I really like, and I think he's going to fit in perfect with this Utah football defense. Then we also have Veltre Jefferson, the 3-star athlete from Fresno. We beat out, again, Arizona State, Arizona, a lot of these Pac-12 powerhouses, but also Tennessee. We beat him. Fun fact, he was originally a USC commit before he decommitted and flipped his commitment to Utah. He's most likely going to play on the defensive side of the ball for the Utes, but it looks pretty good having him in this class as well. He's number 48 athlete in the country. He's a freak.
What do you think has got what's giving Utah the edge over some of these other schools, especially with stealing somebody like this from a school like USC? How is Utah able to do that?
I think it's just buying into the process. We've talked about this before. Utah's great at putting players into the NFL, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I think these kids are buying into this process and are really, really loving it. Also, this coaching staff is fantastic. You have, in your corners, you're going to be playing under Sharif Shaw. Your safeties, you got Morgan Scally. If you're linebackers, you're playing under Colton Swan. You have a really, really good defensive coaching staff. And knock on wood, Utah hasn't had a lot of turnover in that defensive coaching staff. And it's paying off because they're able to lock these kids in because they're like, hey, look, Jalen Johnson playing on Sundays, that could be you.
Yeah, I think for sure, Sammy. I think you hit it right there. Utah's producing NFL defensive players. They're showing that they can take guys who aren't necessarily super top level prospects. 3 and 4 stars. We're not talking 5, but 3 and 4 stars, and sometimes even 2. And they're taking them to the next level. They're getting them drafted, and these guys are performing on Sundays. Jalen Johnson, Julian Blackman, their names have been in the news for the NFL the last few Sundays. It's not just once here and there a lucky play. No, the last 3 or 4 Sundays, we're hearing about these guys, these rookies out of Utah every single week. And so that is really, to me, is what is making the difference as far as recruiting, especially on the defensive end. Look at all these great defensive players that we're bringing in.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest selling point is that Utah has is buying into the process and buying into the fact that that could be you playing on Sundays next, like in the future. But on the flip side, also got a big wide receiver commit. Demekio Nathan, he's a 3-star wide receiver from Texas. He's the number 150 in the nation. We beat out Arizona, Boise State, BYU, Houston, San Diego State, and Texas Tech for him. Last year, he accounted for 800 yards from scrimmage and 6 touchdowns.
Jeez.
800 yards? Okay, I understand that the touchdown to, like, yard ratio is a little off, but 800 yards.
Well, it reminds me.
You can imagine him catching a pass from, like, Bentley next year, or Cam Rising, or even Cooper Justice, or Peter Costelli. I'm sold.
Well, you need guys like that. I mean, you look at Britton Covey 2 years ago in 2018. The guy had a crazy amount of yards. I think over 500 yards, but only, I think, 1 touchdown pass. And it may have not even been any. You need guys like that can catch. I mean, there's 100 yards on the field. The end zones account for a very small amount. They're the most important, but you need guys to take you from one end to the other to get you into that end zone and set up plays where you can, punch it in with a running back, or maybe hit Brandon Keithy for, one of those solid tight end plays to get to the end zone, a corner route. But that is very encouraging to see somebody who understands, I have to be the guy that gets us to the end zone. I don't necessarily need to be the guy that's catching the ball in the end zone.
Exactly. And then the last one that we want to touch on this week, or this time we talk about recruiting, is Darian Stewart. He's a 3-star safety from Las Vegas. He's the number 7 player in the state of Nevada. Utah joined late in the game in his recruiting process, but we were still able to reel him in. We beat out UCLA and Boise State for him. I think that this is good. I've never worry about who the defensive coaches, or even the coaches in general. I don't worry about who they bring in, because they're able to find that talent, and find it and bring it into Utah. Whether it's 3 stars, 4 stars, 2 stars, no stars, they're able to find that pure talent on the field and bring it to Utah and translate it into a college level athlete. So again, this is just Utah doing Utah. They're just bringing the 3 and the 4-star recruits, and they're going to make them pretty good quality players.
Yeah, that's one thing that Utah is so good at doing is they don't need those 5-star recruits. They don't need tons of 4-star recruits. A few here and there, but 3 stars, I feel like that's kind of where we find the diamonds in the rough. We find those guys that maybe necessarily didn't turn a lot of heads at some of the more top programs like Alabama, LSU, some of those other places, and we take them and we make them great, and we turn them into stars on our team. And so that's what I love to see. We look at these recruiting reports, and I just don't worry about what kind of level they are. I mean, I see him, I'm like, all right, I trust Coach Witt. He's going to do his thing, and this guy's going to be great.
Trust the process. And usually a lot of Utah's classes are usually 3-star recruits. And sometimes people are like, oh God, are we not going to get 4 stars? We bring in the 4-star recruits. Tafuga's a 4-star. Peter Costelli's a 4-star. We had Clark Phillips last year, who was a high 4-star. We bring them in, but it's not Utah's brand to bring in these high 4-star recruits. It's their brand to bring in 3 stars and turn them into potentially first-round draft picks. But last thing I'm going to add on this topic of recruiting is tomorrow is actually a pretty big day for Utah in terms of recruiting. One of the top tight end prospects that Utah's going after, Isaac Vaha from Pleasant Grove School here in Salt Lake, he's committing tomorrow at 4 p.m. So Utah made his top 7 along with Penn State, UCLA, ASU, Washington, Oregon, and BYU. If Utah can land him, I think this will start. This will continue a long lineage of really solid tight ends that Utah has.
Well, Sammy, I tweeted at him, so I think that improved our chances. I think.
Oh yeah, totally.
That may have locked it.
Booted it up.
Well,
locked him in with a.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully, this kid will be wearing a drum and feather here soon. But Sammy, let's move on to our next topic. What we think a realistic record for Utah this season will be. So, Sammy, if you'll humor me a little bit here, I'm just going to run through a little bit of our schedule. Feel free to interrupt me where you feel so necessary. But realistically, here we've got 6 games. That is a fact. And the first
7.
one, well, yeah, right, 7.
6 scheduled, but 7 tentatively.
Yeah, hopefully 7. Hopefully that 7th game is the Pac-12 championship. I think our odds are looking pretty good. But let's dive in. So the first game, Arizona. Arizona has yet to emerge from W, big W. It goes without saying. That's why I didn't say it. Arizona is yet to emerge from the rut that they've been in for the last few years. Maybe it has something to do with losing to BYU a few times. I don't know. And while this game won't be the cleanest necessarily with some of the new guys on the roster, Utah should emerge by 2 or 3 scores.
Utah wins this. It's at home. It's the first game of the season. These guys are hungry. They're ready to play. I agree. It's not going to be the cleanest game. I think there's going to be mistakes on both sides for both Utah and Arizona, but Utah comes out of this with a W. There's no way they don't.
Well, and I like that we play Arizona first, and then we play UCLA, another W, because it's going to give guys, my opinion, Jake Bentley, a good amount of time to really settle in with that offense, and then as well, our younger defense, some of these new guys coming in, some time to really get a hold of themselves and be put in a situation where they're playing at a college level and getting a lot of minutes. I mean, we have a huge amount of turnover. Now, I'm not necessarily worried because I think the guys that are coming in off the bench from last year are going to be just fine. But Arizona W, UCLA W, just to touch on UCLA, too many replacements for what was a pitiful UCLA team last year. Utah should win this game pretty easy.
Again, I think I agree with you. I think it's really nice that Utah's first 2 games are Arizona and UCLA. It's going to be a nice ease in because games 3 and 4 are not so easy for the Utes. And I think that getting that experience underneath their belt is going to be really nice. I am more excited to see how the secondary grows and how the defense grows between game 1 and game 2 rather than the offense. I'm not super worried about the offense. Whoever's going to be under center is going to be fine. We have 3 possible candidates right now. Witt said he wants to have it narrowed down to 2 after Saturday's scrimmage, but he won't release who the 2 are to the media. And then by game week, we should have a starter. But again, he's not going to announce it he's going to have a starter before game week, but he's not going to announce it until game week. So it's going to be a lot of speculating until then, but I think whoever's under center is going to be fine. They have weapons. It's okay. But game 3, USC.
Well, and that's why I bring up a little bit more of the offense. I mean, the defense is really important too. But the offense, I think how those 2 first games go, I mean, I expect W's, but if they can blow those guys out and really take advantage of weaker defenses, they could have a chance against USC. Now, unfortunately, I hate to say this, I see it as a loss.
I do too.
It's a strong returning offensive roster for USC that I think will outplay the new and younger Utah secondary. It'll be close, but I think Utah drops this one by 1 score or maybe 10 points, something like that.
I think this one is it's at Rice-Eccles Stadium, which is a benefit for the team. I understand there's not going to be fans in the stands, but when they play at Rice-Eccles against USC, they tend to play a little bit better than when they play at the Coliseum. We all know how that went last year. But
don't bring that up.
I'm going to bring it up because I'm still. But last year, you had a very talented secondary, and you got torched by Matt Fink. If Keaton Slovis stays healthy and is playing by game 3, I I have a feeling he is going to torch this Utah secondary. And this is going to be the first big test for this team. As good as DTR is, I think that he doesn't have as many weapons around him that Slovis has. And I just think it's just, I would love to see Utah beat USC this year, but I just physically can't see it until I see what the defense looks like.
Yeah, that's the biggest question. Moving on to the next, we got ASU. I'm putting a W up on this one, but I think it's going to be a shootout. Utah knows Jaden Daniels really well, and I think the arsenal of wide receivers on Utah's side is going to step up. They should handle that defense pretty well, and I think Utah comes away, like I said, a shootout. I think we could see 30, 40 points put up on both sides with maybe one possession separating the two.
I agree. I think that the Utah defense and offense rebounds from the loss against USC versus ASU. Last year, it was miserable for Jaden Daniels. Like, he was struggling. He spent most of his game on his back. And I think that it might be the same way this year. I think that the Utah defense is going to be able to learn from what happened against USC and put it towards ASU. Again, I don't know. Like, now that Ayuk's gone, going to be Daniel's number one target. There's a couple names that people have been throwing around, but I just don't see a good number one reliable guy. And I think that Utah is going to be able to do it. Also, how are they going to do? What are they going to do without Benjamin?
There's a lot of questions on that side, and that's as many struggles as Utah has had against ASU. I think this year, they get it done. But moving on to Oregon State. Sammy, who even plays for Oregon State? Can you tell me who? Utah will dominate the Beavs as the team really just starts to hit their stride. A W at ASU after probably what we see as a loss to USC, and they keep that going. And I think they smash the Beavs.
The Beavers never have been competition to the Utes.
Well
so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, Sammy. You may have to hold me back with this one. Colorado.
I'll virtually hold you back because I can't physically hold you back right now.
Colorado. The rumble in the Rockies, or like Utah rocks Colorado. Since Utah has joined the Pac-12, both teams have joined the Pac-12. The series is 7-2. Can I talk louder? 7-2. In favor of Utah, with the Utes on a 3-game win streak. The Buffs are also being led by a new head coach, new quarterback. You really think they're going to get the best of Coach Witt and his new senior transfer from SEC with his full arsenal of wide receivers? Come on. Are you kidding me? Sammy, what do you got?
I have Utah. It's hands down easy. It's Utah, Utah, Utah. There's no way it's not Utah. Even if there's 6 feet of snow on the ground, because this game is going to be in December, Utah's still going to win. Utah cannot. Jason said on Bus Dash that this is a trap game for Utah. No, it's not. I understand that this isn't like the same Utah team we've seen in years past and stuff like that, but Coach Witt tells his team to never sleep on an opponent. And they're not going to sleep on Colorado.
No. And let me add a few more things. In addition, Colorado has had one season at 500 in the Pac-12, which is less than the amount of coaches they've had. And let's be honest, if the Pac-12 was going to get rid of anybody in the South when a realignment happens, I'm sorry, it's Colorado. Because when have they ever been good? 2016, that fluke season where they went 10-3, something like that.
The Pac-12 South, yeah.
The one time, every other time, they've pretty much been either 500 or under 500. 4-7 all the time. They had a 1-10 season, and they're coming at us, who have won the Pac-12 South the last 2 years, and who have had way better records. And I'm sorry, 7-2 out of our meetings, 7-2.
Also, I'd like to bring up one of those losses was by a field goal. in inclement weather, which, to be completely honest, I can't remember who the kicker was. It was one of our first years in the Pac-12. So it wasn't Andy Phillips or Matt Gay, I'm pretty sure. But it was a field goal, a missed field goal. That's not a blowout. You can't say that this is a rivalry. Utah and Colorado, not a rivalry. I will go to my grave saying that Utah's rival in the Pac-12 is either USC or Arizona State. It is not Colorado. Never has been, never will be.
I'm sick and tired of hearing that because it's ridiculous. Like, just because I think we are technically the closest team to them, they're like, oh yeah, those are our rivals. I'm like, no, we are your superiors and you don't talk down to us. All right. We got to stop there. We got to finish with that. But let's move on to the third topic. We can't stoop to their level. All right. Sammy, the last topic for today. Why is the Pac-12 South harder to win than the Pac-12 North?
It's a 3-team race. Utah, USC, Arizona State. All three of those teams could make a run for the Pac-12 or the Pac-12 South Division title, and even the Pac-12 championship. Who is there in the North? Okay, you have Oregon. Okay, they're the clear front runners. Who's number 2? You have Washington, who's replacing their quarterback and their whole coaching staff. You have Washington State, who's in the same boat. You have
Cal.
I'm not even going to consider Oregon State in here. Cal is the only team that I could see making a run for that second spot and like contending against Oregon because they have a returning quarterback, because they have a returning coach, they have a solid defense. For someone to say the Pac-12 North harder to win is tripping. It is not.
Absolutely.
Stanford, what is going on with Stanford? Like them and Cal have been having their issues of being able to practice. Will they be like? I don't think they're going to be at the same level.
Well, regardless of whether or not it's Utah going for a three-peat in the South, and we didn't exactly outline this. 5-1 record is what I see from Utah.
Same.
The winner of the South will win the Pac-12. Utah and USC are both coming off of great seasons. They both maintain some key playmakers, and they reloaded as well, where they lost players to the draft or to graduation and such. Arizona State is also a potential dark horse team that could beat either USC or Utah and potentially end up winning the Pac-12 South. And UCLA, Arizona, and Colorado struggled a bit last year, but I think they're better than Oregon State and Stanford and Washington State at this point. And Sammy, what is up with Stanford? I mean, they have really been in a bad place for a couple of years. I don't know if it's the recruiting that's been going on there or really what. I mean, when's the last time that they've really been in the conversation for the North in the last 5 or so years?
I would say it's been 2 or 3 years since Stanford's actually been like a solid contender. I think that it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of things it could be. It could be coaching. It could be transfers. It could be like, there's so many variables that can lead to this. I don't think it's recruiting. Stanford's always been good at recruiting because you can recruit kids based on the fact that, hey, you're going to Stanford. You're smart. Like, you're going to Stanford. Like, that's how they can recruit these kids. But I don't think there's so many questions of what it could be, but I don't know what it is. I don't think Stanford, I think it sucks. It was a low blow that they lost KJ Costello because he is really good. And he had his game in the SEC and everyone's like, yeah, KJ Costello. And then it kind of like went just a little bit. But I think he's still solid. But I don't know what's going on with Stanford. I think, honestly, in the North, the dark horse is Cal. I have my prediction set that Oregon's like number 1, but 2 through 6 is like, it fluctuates. Right now, Cal seems to be the most consistent team up at number 2.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with that. And it's interesting, for a couple of years there, Cal was just irrelevant.
Not good.
No, not good. And I think they've maybe turned that around a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if they can repeat some of the success that they had last year.
They were pretty good last year.
I think they're coming off of 8 wins.
Yeah, they were good. They Utah was able to handle them because they were playing their third string quarterback at that time. But still, Cal was pretty good last year, and I think that they're returning a good chunk of their offense and a good chunk of their defense. And I think they're good. I think Cal could contend for that North spot. Like it's still in my opinion, it's Oregon's to lose. Mm-hmm. But you can't argue that the Pac-12 North is harder to win than the South. You have the South. You have 3 teams that are running, but to be completely honest, one of those teams could be knocked out in week 1 when ASU and USC, because they play each other in week 1. So whoever loses that might be out of the contention. And then it also helps Utah that we play USC and ASU back to back.
Yeah, especially if we can pull off 2 wins in a row, I think we've got it.
I think that. I know the first game of the season, the USC ASU game, is going to be a shootout, but I think it also is not going to be, because again, this is the first game that these guys have played. This is the first time you've played against someone other than you're playing against at practice in almost a year. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be clean on either side. I'll say that with every game in the Pac-12 the first week is probably not going to be the cleanest, but I think it's going to be a shootout. I want to see how Slovis does. I want to see how Daniels has improved. And I just think the South is the harder division. Hands down, no cap, no argument, up for discussions. You think the North is harder to win, the door's over there.
Well, and it's, I'll fully admit that I think for the last 4 or so years that the North has been more difficult. Hands down. With Oregon and Washington, Washington State had a good run there for a couple of years, and obviously, Stanford a little bit of a ways back, and then USC. USC in the South. I think the North was really tough, but I think the tables have turned, and I think it mostly has to do with the fact that a lot of the talent has graduated or gone on to bigger and better things in the NFL. While I do think it's Oregon's to lose, it'll be interesting to see how they adjust without their star quarterback, Justin Herbert, who is now rocking my team in the NFL, the Chargers. So I love him now.
Y'all still lost to the Bucks.
Stop, growing pains, but we're not talking about that. But it will be, and that's why I think that it's different. The South, it's going to be guaranteed. It's going to be Utah, USC, or Arizona State. The North, it's Oregon, and I don't know who else really can challenge that. So
the North is replacing 2 head coaches, and the South is replacing 1. I'm not saying that coaching is all of it, but I'm saying coaching is a big part, because you always have growing pains when you have a new coach. Because as a player, this is not the coach that recruited you. This is not the coaching staff that was like, hey, you should come play for us. So you're thrown into the fire with a coaching staff that doesn't know you. And I just don't think that there's been those teams that have meshed really well with a new head coach, but I think more times than not, the first year is hard. And I think that Oregon is going to take advantage of that this year because the Pac-12 North is down. And I think Cal is going to take advantage of it too. But, it's just the South is the harder division, and that's end of discussion.
End of discussion. Well, Sammy, that is all the time we have today. We want to thank everyone for following us today here on Ute Dash. Again, we want you guys know that we have collaborated with Sports Pac-12, where you can find our shows, articles, lots of good stuff. Be sure to follow them at sportspac12.com and on Twitter at sportspac12. In addition, please don't forget to check out our website, dashsports.tv, and check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We got some good stuff on there at Dash Sports TV. Thanks again, everyone. And as always, go Utes.
Go Utes, guys.